Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Flat end to a volatile day of trade for the market. IT and financials outperform while healthcare and FMCG stocks drag. Rupee hit yet another record low of 84.39. The Indian currency has depreciated 1% in just the last 6 months.
The auto segment EBITDA margin was very close to positive even last quarter. So our auto segment EBITDA margins, one can assume in that timeline will be in the positive territory.
As Ola's losses narrow in the second quarter, CEO Bhavish Aggarwal says that the company is on the path to profitability, adds that he expects the auto business to turn EBITDA positive by next fiscal, insists that service issues and backlogs are a thing of the past, and that Ola now completes 80% of service requests on the same day. The Asian Paint stock takes a drubbing, falls over 9% as the markets give its underwhelming second quarter performance a big thumbs down. A slew of brokerages turn cautious on the stock, citing weak demand, stiff competition and rising costs. Mutual funds continue to attract strong investor interest in October. Inflows into equity funds jumped 21% to a record above 41,800 crore rupees, led by all-time high flows into mid-cap and large-cap funds. Hybrid fund inflows tripled as debt fund inflows surged to 1.5 lakh crore rupee inflows against outflows of over 1 lakh crores in September. Gross SIP inflows crossed 25,000 crores for the first time. Justice Sanjiv Khanna takes oath as India's 51st Chief Justice. In his 6-month tenure, he's expected to lead the bench on key matters, including a review of the Supreme Court's judgment on the same-sex marriage and a review of the Sabarimala judgment. Brand Vistara flies into the sunset today. Its last flight will be from Mumbai to Delhi at 10:50 p.m. tonight. The brand will officially merge with Air India starting Tuesday and will fly with the prefix AI2. Ukraine targets Russia with its biggest drone attack yet. Flight services were temporarily disrupted in Moscow. Washington Post citing sources reports that US President-elect Donald Trump dialed Putin, urging a de-escalation of war in Ukraine. Kremlin, however, denied that Trump had spoken to Putin. United Nations Annual Climate Summit kicks off in Azerbaijan's capital Baku. Securing $1 trillion annually in climate finance for developing nations tops the agenda. The shadow of Donald Trump, a vocal climate change denier, also looms large over the summit.
क्या ये आप कहना चाह रहे हैं कि फाइनेंशियल डिपार्टमेंट के जो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं उनकी जनता का कोई आधार नहीं है?
बिल्कुल आधार नहीं है। अरे सरकार हम चलाते हैं।
Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde rejects warning of bureaucrats over lack of funds for welfare schemes, as Finance Minister Ajit Pawar has said that all is well, also asserts that there is no fight in Mahayuti over CM face. Well, let's begin by heading straight into the day's trading action. The Lal Street failed to hold on to intraday gains. Nifty and Sensex ended the day flat. The mid-cap index took it on the chin, falling nearly 1%. BAX, meanwhile, outperformed the blue chips, with the index ending 0.5% in the green. FMCG and healthcare stocks were the other big laggards. Well, speaking of the markets, mutual funds have continued to attract strong investor interest in October. Inflows into equity funds have jumped by 21% to a record high, led by all-time high flows into mid-cap and large-cap funds. Inflows into hybrid funds also tripled as debt fund inflows surged. Surbhi Upadhyay joining us now with more details. Surbhi.
Well, what a solid showing by retail investors. They've kept the faith in the month of October as the market continued to move southwards with that 8% drop on the Nifty. So here are the numbers, and they're looking fantastic. The net equity inflow number has crossed the 40,000 mark for the first time. In fact, not 40,000, make that 41,865. So nearing the 42,000 crore rupee mark. That's the level of inflow we've got in the month of October. SIPs, more records being broken here because the numbers have crossed 25,000 crores, to be precise, 25,323. That is the amount pulled in through the systematic investment plan route. The good news is that the flows have come in across categories: large cap, mid cap, small cap. thematic funds, hybrid funds, a lot of the different categories have contributed. On large caps, actually, we've seen very healthy inflows, almost 3,500 crores. And this is something that the industry has been crying out, saying that this is a good time to shift some allocation to large caps. So it seems to be finally happening. But the mid-cap category is where the maximum amount of money has come in if you compare the three market capitalization categories, because here the inflow is in excess of 4,600 crore rupees. Small caps have been steady, about 3,700 crores of inflows coming in over there. The story is really hybrids. And ever since we had the taxation change, some of the hybrid funds have become very, very attractive from a tax efficiency perspective. And that explains the kind of inflows that, let's say, the multi-asset fund category is drawing in. Balanced advantage has been very steady. And arbitrage funds have pulled in over 7,000 crores in the month gone by, which is the overall number for hybrids is looking very smart at nearly 17,000 crores. Thematic and sectoral funds have been the big trend for the mutual fund industry this whole year, and that continues. They've again pulled in close to 12,300 crores. And another, people will argue of a slightly healthy sort of statistic is the fact that this massive inflow of nearly 42,000 crores, it's not come in because of big ticket NFOs. It's existing funds, existing schemes which are also pulling in the money. In fact, the NFO inflow is fairly subdued at just about 6,000 crores versus levels of 14, 15, 16,000 crores that we've seen in the past as well. The total AUM of the industry has now crossed 67,25,000 crores. So fantastic showing by the retail investor who has kept his faith in the equity story.
Right, Subhi, thanks a lot for that. Now heading into the money markets, the rupee slide continues. The Indian currency hit yet another record low of 84.39 against the dollar. The rupee has been under pressure following Donald Trump's historic victory in the US presidential elections. In fact, the rupee has ended lower in the last 3 out of 4 trading sessions since Trump sealed the race to the White House. And Bitcoin, meanwhile, has continued its rally, touching $80,000 for the first time ever since Donald Trump's victory in the US. Presidential election, along with pro-crypto candidates being voted to the Congress, spurred expectations of a light-handed regulatory environment. The largest crypto assets' total market capitalization has neared 1.7 trillion mark, thanks to the 20% rise in the digital asset in just the last 1 week. And moving on to the big newsmaker of the day, Ola CEO Bhavish Aggarwal has said that the company is on the path to profitability as its losses have narrowed in just the last few weeks. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18, Aggarwal said that he expects the auto business to turn EBITDA positive by next fiscal. Aggarwal also insisted that service issues and backlogs are a thing of the past. Take a look.
The auto segment EBITDA margin was very close to positive even last quarter. So our auto segment EBITDA margins, one can assume in that timeline will be in the positive territory. See, for the foreseeable future, I expect about 1/3 of our volumes to come from premium and about 2/3 from the mass. That would mean revenue of about 50-50. Any service backlogs are all history now. We are now doing more than 80% service requests within T+1 days. That means if you bring your scooter today, we will service it today or tomorrow. 80% of such issues are resolved in T+1 days. But our focus is to really build the future of the automotive segment, automotive industry with Ola Electric. And we are allocating capital wisely. We are on the path to profitability. So I do expect shareholders and prospective shareholders to join this journey and really build the future with us.
Well, shares of Asian Paints, meanwhile, tumbled in trade after a weak second quarter performance that missed the estimates. Volume growth fell 0.5% due to weak consumer sentiment, as well as persistent rains and floods in some parts of the country. Quarterly net profit fell by 44%, while revenues dropped 5% on an annualized basis. The company has said that it remains positive about the second half of the fiscal. However, analysts are concerned over the rising competition levels. Now, Aditya Birla Group Chairman Kumar Birla is optimistic about the India-US ties under Donald Trump's presidency and is hoping that the business relationship between the two countries will get a boost. Speaking at an event in Mumbai, he expressed his intent to expand investments in the United States and also talked about Vodafone Idea's turnaround plans. Take a look.
That commissioned in 26, FY26, and that's on schedule. Like I said, it's a very high technology, precision technology rolling mill, and it's the first rolling mill of its kind ever being put up in the US. I think that the company is well on its way to make a firm turnaround. And yeah, I think we can only look to better times ahead.
Well, Vistara, the full-service airline founded as a joint venture between Singapore Airlines and the Tata Group, is bidding farewell to its identity as an independent brand. As a part of a strategic merger with Air India, Vistara will now operate its last domestic and international flight tonight. Madhya Mujawar is here to tell us more about it, about Vistara's 10-year journey and why it was decided to merge the brand with Air India.
Well, on the 9th of January 2015, Vistara had operated its first flight from Delhi to Mumbai. Almost a decade later, it will be operating its last flight tonight as a standalone brand. Now, before I sum up Vistara's solo journey and why it was decided to merge the airline with Air India, here's a farewell message by the pilot on one of Vistara's flights today.
Beginning tomorrow, Vistara will merge into Air India with a commitment to create a world-class global airline. This merger will open up a world of possibilities for you with a wider global network, added benefits, and a bigger new loyalty program. While we will not fly as Vistara, we can continue to enjoy the familiar Vistara experience on Air India aircraft.
So Vistara will fly its last flight tonight. UK 986 will take off from Mumbai at 10:50 p.m. and land in the national capital. The last international flight, UK 115, will depart from Delhi at 10:45 p.m. and fly to Singapore. Now, Vistara was a joint venture between Singapore Airlines and the Tata Group, with each holding 49% and 51% stake. The airline had started its operations with Airbus A320 aircraft that flew its first flight on the 9th of January 2015. Within 3 years, in April 2018, Vistara received its 20th aircraft. The airline played a crucial role in getting the 5/20 rule removed. This rule, remember, limited domestic carriers from operating international routes unless they had at least 5 years of domestic operations and 20 aircraft. And then on the 6th of August 2019, the airline flew its first international flight from New Delhi to Singapore. In the last 10 years, Vistara grew into one of India's leading airlines, operating 350 flights per day across 32 domestic routes and 18 international routes, including London, Dubai, and Paris. The airline's fleet also expanded to 70 aircraft, which featured 7 Boeing 787 Dreamliners, 53 Airbus A320s, and 10 Airbus A321s. Now, Vistara was the first domestic airline to introduce premium economy on domestic routes and was also the first domestic airline to offer Wi-Fi facility on international routes. The growth reflected in Vistara's market share that grew steadily over the years from 1.3% in 2015 to 9.8% in 2024. But the growth came at a cost. Now, despite its strong growth in both fleet and routes, the airline struggled with consistent losses since its inception. And then in November 2022, the Tata Group announced the merger of Vistara with Air India. Singapore Airlines had a very logical explanation to the merger decision. It said that continuing as a standalone brand in India was far more risky than merging Vistara with Air India, considering the competitive headwinds. The merger with Air India will mark the end of one era and the beginning of another chapter for the Vistara family. Passengers taking the last flight tonight will be a part of history, witnessing the end of the airline's solo journey.
Right, Madhya, thanks a lot for that. The tagline, of course, of the airline, fly the new feeling, now coming to an end, that dream coming to an end as far as Vistara, the last flight tonight at 10:50 p.m. Between Delhi and Mumbai. Let's move ahead now. In a bid to reduce food wastage, Zamato has launched a new feature on its platform called Food Rescue. This will allow customers to buy cancelled orders at a discounted rate. CEO Dipinder Goyal said that around 4 lakh orders are being cancelled every month despite a no-refund policy. As per Goyal, the cancelled orders will have the original packaging and Zamato will not keep any profits from the resale. And with that, it's time now to head into a very short break. But coming up, Maharashtra's Chief Minister Eknath Shinde rejects warning of bureaucrats over lack of funds for welfare schemes, as Finance Minister Ajit Pawar says that all is well. More on that when we come back. Welcome back. Now, the Bharatiya Janata Party and the opposition alliance Mahavikas Aghadi have released their respective manifestos for the Maharashtra Assembly elections. The BJP has promised to launch a plan within 100 days of government formation to take Maharashtra to a $1 trillion economy. It also promised to hike the monthly assistance under the Ladki Bahi scheme to 2,100 rupees. The BJP will also hike the loan waiver for farmers and increase the old age pension. Meanwhile, the Congress-led Mahavikas Aghadi has promised monthly financial aid of 3,000 rupees for women under the Mahalakshmi scheme and free bus rides. It assured waiving farm loans of up to 3 lakh rupees and a monthly stipend for youth seeking jobs. The party also wants to conduct a caste census in the state. Bureaucrats have warned that the welfare schemes announced by parties come with a hefty price tag, as these will add further pressure to the state's coffers. However, in a conversation with CNBC TV 18, Chief Minister Eknath Shinde dismissed concerns over the state's finances and called them baseless.
फाइनेंस डिपार्टमेंट का, आप ही के स्टेट के फाइनेंस डिपार्टमेंट का कहना है कि इतना भार जो आ गया है स्टेट एक्सचेकर पे, वो हम लेने की स्थिति में नहीं है। जब एक के बाद एक स्कीम अनाउंस की जा रही थी, उन्होंने तब भी सरकार से अनुग्रह किया था कि हमारे पास इतना खर्चा वहन करने की क्षमता नहीं है। 2 लाख करोड़ से ज्यादा का फिस्कल डेफिसिट हो गया है। तो ऐसी स्थिति क्यों हो गई सर?
स्टेटमेंट देने का काम हमारा होता है और अजीत दादा पवार फाइनेंस के मिनिस्टर है, डिप्टी चीफ मिनिस्टर है। उन्होंने उसमें उनके स्टेटमेंट में कहा है कि हमारी सरकार जो है पूरी तरह जो स्कीम लागू है उसको पूरा करने में सक्षम है। और मैं भी बताता हूं कि पूरी स्कीम के लिए फंड का प्रोविजन हमने कर रखा है। हमारी सरकार जीडीपी पे 25% लोन हम उठा सकते हैं। हम अभी 17.5 पर है। FRBM जो है वो 3% से नीचे है। ये आरबीआई
डेफिसिट 3% से ज्यादा हो गया है, जो आपकी लोन लेने की क्षमता को इम्पैक्ट
नहीं, लोन लेने की क्षमता और हमारी है। आपको जो कोई विपक्ष कहते हैं वो गलत है। आरबीआई
फाइनेंशियल डिपार्टमेंट का स्टेटमेंट,
फाइनेंशियल डिपार्टमेंट कौन होता है? फाइनेंशियल डिपार्टमेंट का मिनिस्टर स्टेटमेंट करता है, उन्होंने कहा है। तो आरबीआई की गाइडलाइन, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की गाइडलाइन हमने फॉलो किए, कोई भी वायलेशन नहीं किया।
तो ये जो फाइनेंशियल डिपार्टमेंट की,
और आपको बताऊंगा मैं कि अभी जो निवेश है फॉरेन फंड का, एफडीआई का, वो टोटल निवेश से 52% इन्वेस्टमेंट महाराष्ट्र में।
तो आप कहना चाह रहे हैं कि फाइनेंशियल डिपार्टमेंट के जो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं उनकी जनता का कोई आधार नहीं है? आप
बिल्कुल आधार नहीं है। अरे सरकार हम चलाते हैं, हम सरकार चलाते हैं। लोगों का जो स्कीम्स है, वेलफेयर स्कीम्स है, पुरानी स्कीम्स है, ये किसानों को पैसे देने के, उनमें से एक भी स्कीम बंद नहीं होने देंगी, बंद नहीं होगी। और ये वेलफेयर स्कीम लाडली बहना चालू रहेगी।
Well, United Nations Annual Climate Summit kicked off in Azerbaijan's capital Baku today. Securing $1 trillion climate finance deal for developing nations tops the agenda. The shadow of Donald Trump, a vocal climate change denier, also looms large over the summit. Rachna Dhanrajani is joining us now with a look at the curtain raiser. Rachna.
World leaders have gathered for COP29 at Baku in Azerbaijan, focusing on some of the most pressing climate issues. This year's agenda is packed with key goals around climate finance, fossil fuel transition and adaptation frameworks. First on the agenda is climate financing. Nations aim to replace the current $100 billion pledge that expires this year with a new, higher target that brings in private capital. Wealthier nations, however, insist that they cannot bear this alone and are looking to reform global finance structures to spread the costs. Then there's the fossil fuel transition. While COP28 marked a milestone pledging to shift away from coal, oil and gas and new approvals for fossil fuel projects, especially in a country like Azerbaijan that is hosting COP29 this year, along with countries like the US, it shows that just how tough it is for this shift to happen. On the carbon markets front, countries are pushing for transparent rules to trade carbon credits, especially for projects like forest preservation that offset emissions. Business leaders are also calling for standards to ensure integrity. A major focus is also on loss and damage fund, which was launched to help climate-vulnerable countries with disaster recovery. And yet only $660 million have been pledged so far. And developing nations are urging wealthier nations to increase their contributions. But there are significant concerns clouding this summit. Former US President Donald Trump, who was recently re-elected, has vowed to withdraw the US from the Paris Agreement for a second time. This move could again weaken the global climate response. Another concern comes from China, which has urged that trade disputes like the EU's carbon border tax be included in these talks. These new tensions could complicate negotiations, and the focus on climate goals could shift away. As world leaders work through these urgent issues, the question remains, will they be able to meet the moment and push the world toward the climate action, especially at a time when EU, UK key officials from these countries will not be participating in this year's COP?
Right, Rachna, thanks a lot for that. Now, moving on to the latest coming in from